from Bangladesh. We have three first names. Yeah.
So do you guys drink, are you guys coffee snobs?
No. I was when I lived in Italy.
I bet.
That's a different level of coffee.
Yeah. It's so good.
Is it like
but
French,
now
French press, or is there something even more that I don't know?
Nespresso,
Oh.
which is so good and so smooth and so delicious. But in the pandemic, do you remember the Dalgona coffee trend, which is basically espresso from when we lived in Bangladesh? Do you remember Chini de Pani?
Yeah, it's a shake. It's a coffee shake.
Espresso, they called it. Candy floss gele dibe. Appu espresso dibo. So they would give you espresso. Anyway, that I bought instant coffee to make that over the pandemic, and I never went back. Now I only drink instant coffee. I don't know what it is. The nostalgia. I don't know.
It's so good.
Do you do that?
Compete with that.
Do you do that?
Nobody has to. It's an art.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a mommy that used to literally put it in like a blender and make the most bomb-ass instant coffee. But yeah, I mean, because Starbucks is really popular here, obviously. I think Dunkin' Donuts is way better.
I don't agree. I used to think this. I don't agree.
With
LA,
the
we don't have a lot of Dunkin' Donuts. I miss it. I do like their coffee.
What
you
do
don't like?
have?
It's just all Starbucks everywhere, and like little tiny coffee houses and stuff. Yeah.
We have a Caribou coffee.
Yeah. What? I like Caribou.
I think they force their Midwestern cabin culture on you. So I refuse
It's true. They've got like it's a whole. Oh no, it's a Caribou. Cabin. But okay, at least they don't mess up your name, because at Starbucks you have to give a name and they never get it right.
Yeah. What's your name at Starbucks?
Well, so first of all, my name is hard. Well, actually, it's not hard. It's literally pronounced the way it's spelled, and people insist that it's not that. So I usually go by Barbara, and don't ask me why I picked. I don't know why I picked that, because I was trying to think of like a white name that started with a B.
It's the most whitest name. I bet they don't even look at you. They might be like, no, that's not your coffee.
Your coffee.
So for years, I mean, first of all, I don't go to Starbucks all the time, which is why I know you guys are like, oh, we use the app. I randomly will go if I'm like at some conference or meeting and suddenly there's a Starbucks. Okay, fine, I'll go with my coworkers. So I'm not like, a frequent Starbucks person. So I was like, Barbara works, Babs, whatever. And then we went through.
But they think you're like an 80-year-old woman? Like
all I pictured was Barbara Bush. That's all I pictured. Yeah. So then came the point years later where everybody was like, hey, we are so confident of where we're from and our names, and like say my name right, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna start giving them my real name. So every time I would say Bushra, I would get different versions. Okay, I got like Basra as a name, because they write it on the cup, right? So there's Basra, basura, which means garbage in Spanish. Basura. But the best one I got is Burse. Not purse, but Burse. Yeah, Burse. B-U-R-S-E. And so as much as I love being, ethnic and having an ethnic name, I'm going back to Barbara.
Please don't.
This is a great story too, since we're talking about names. So when I first met Damon, who's my husband, he's a white dude. Speaking of Midwest people, he grew up in the Chicago.
An Actio named Barbara.
Right. Who grew up in the Chicago area, white as can be. When we first met, he goes, one of his pickup lines to me was, oh, I dated a Bangladeshi girl in college. And I'm like, this poor white boy, he doesn't know the difference between like Indians and Pakistanis, Bangladeshi. He's probably just saying Bangladeshi. Because I was like, what are the chances? He went to U of I, kind of like a Midwest, you don't hear Bangladeshis, right? So I'm like, okay, well, what was her name? And he goes, yeah, no, she was from Bangladesh. She's from Bangladesh. Her name is Misty Raman. And I was like,
Mishti Rahman.
that's not a Bangladeshi name. And so he then shows me, I think he shows me like her Facebook or something to be like, no, seriously, this is the girl. And legit, it is spot on what you just said. Sister's name is Mishti Rahman, and has now in America become Misty Ramen.
That should be your Starbucks name.
I know. Maybe I should go by Misty. I think you're onto something.
I think
Challenge accepted. So what about you guys? I mean, okay, Maya, you have a very, I shouldn't say very, but like you have a much easier name in terms of being able to pronounce it, and it is sort of like cross-cultural in terms of lots of different cultures have that name.
But that gets butchered too at Starbucks. I mean, I've been Mia. I have been
Maja.
Like Maya. Yeah, Maja.
Maya.
Yeah, I got Maea. Maja. Those are probably the three that I've gotten. But on that, my actual name is not Maya. It's Sumaya. And yeah.
See, you already Americanized it.
Yeah.
But wait. What do you mean? How do you say it? Sumaya.
No, from Sumaya
like you
to Maya.
Right, your name was Sumaya, but you actually changed, like, cut it to Maya because it's just easier to say that probably.
But it was cut. It wasn't even me. It was like back in 6th grade. So when I came to Canada, it was kind of in between like 4th and 5th grade. Like it was towards the end of 5th grade. So I skipped 5th grade and went straight to 6th grade. And my French teacher, who now when I think about it, feels like she was kind of racist, because for a couple of days she like tried to say my name, and then at the end she was like, I'm just gonna call you Maya. And I was like, okay. And then like obviously like at that point, like we were probably, I don't know, maybe like 5-6 months into living in Canada. Like I didn't know what to say, and it just kind of stuck. So then other kids started calling me that, and that's just what stuck. I do have a DAAK naam. It's Neetu. My full name is Sumaya Mejabin. I don't know why you're laughing.
Because you're one of those girls from Bangladesh who have 3 first names.
No, I think the guy names are better because it's like
Rafiqul Alam Rafiq.
It's like Rafiqul Alam Lipton.
Oh gosh.
So you are Maya Mejabin Neetu. I can't even make that shit
I'm
up.
spitting. Like why do we I mean, we could talk about having DAAK naams for hours here, because I think that's the one nice thing with you marrying you. So I didn't even know you had a DAAK naam because I thought I was the only one. So I have a DAAK naam, and you married, you don't. And I feel like, now most people, I think even in Bangladesh, probably don't give their kids a nickname, right? My nickname is Tushi, and my entire family knows me as Tushi. Like it's weird for them to call me Bushra, and it's weird if I ever heard my parents call me Bushra. That's like, it's not even like, it's so interesting how separate my lives feel based on my name, because it's almost like I have a different persona as Bushra versus Tushi. And interestingly,
I dare you to say that at Starbucks though.
I know, and that's the thing. Of course, I have the freaking name that actually means something in another language, right? So thanks, Mom, for naming me that. But
so isn't that? I have a family name. I don't have like other kore bole na? Like for me, it's like other kore. It's Mehu. So all my cousins, Mehu. Like, but that's
different. That's like name. Christopher becoming Chris, which makes sense.
Yeah.
And even like Sumaya becoming Maya makes sense, but like Neetu is like
Me too. I don't even know where that came from. So my name was Sumaya Mejabin Joita. So when I used to go to Ghana, when I was
How
living in
many names
Bangladesh,
did you have when you were born?
multiple. But you know, what isn't a name, right?
And it's all
By any
first
other
names, by
name?
the way.
They're all
They're all
first
first
Exactly.
names.
names.
What
My
was your last
mom,
name before you married Fuad?
it's still Mejabin. I mean, I haven't changed my last name yet, officially.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's
But
been,
yeah,
I don't it's been a while now.
it's been a
Well,
while.
actually,
Yeah.
that's interesting conversation too, is do people still change, do women still change their maiden last name?
It's too much work.
And I wonder if even in Bangladesh people are doing that. And when I say Bangladesh, I don't mean, that's a big population that I'm talking about, but sort of like generally our circle, um, if people still do that.
So my parents' reasoning behind naming me what they named me was that they wanted me to be like my own person as opposed to like belonging to my father
Yeah.
and then belonging to my husband. So they went with this name, right? So for, I guess, like it's up to me whether I want to take it or not. Eventually I will, like once I get all my papers in order or whatever. I do want to change it because when I was growing up, since my parents split up, my dad had a different name. My mom had a different name.
Mm,
I had a different name. My brother had my dad's name. So
Oh,
I
interesting.
I felt really scattered. So I
yeah.
always like in my head told myself that, when I have a family, like one of these things that I feel like will bring us together, at least in my head. And I know of course that's not what it is, right? That I want all of us to have the same last name so that we could feel
That's
like a
so
family.
interesting. So Minal, my kids have my ex-husband's last name, not mine, and I didn't change mine. So they're all Saeed and I'm Hussein. So Minal, after we got divorced, is like, I want my last name to be Hussein. And I was like,
Mm,
oh, okay. So I was actually told by some professionals that I should probably change it because it keeps that. I think whether you believe
yeah.
it or not, there probably is more of like this innate bond people feel with names like that. Because
Yeah.
she doesn't want Saeed as her name, or at least Hussein Saeed or Saeed Hussein or something.
I changed my last name because my name was on the terrorist database.
What?
Wow.
So
Literally?
my maiden name is Bushra Ahmed. It's shocking, right? That Ahmed is on the list. So I was detained outside of the U.S. once. Have you guys heard the
Oh
story?
yeah, I did.
I think I
So
may have
because
too, but I want to hear it
I was
again.
so basically like I was on a work visa in the U.S., an H-1 visa, and pretty much every year you have to sort of leave the country. Well, if you leave the country, then you have to get your visa renewed, or you could stay in the U.S. for 3, 4 straight years, and that not ever leave the country. And so like my family lived outside of the US, so I would go visit them. And I never had an issue in terms of going to the US Embassy and just getting my H-1B visa renewed. But one year I go in and, takes a little bit of time and the officer comes back and he's like, "Oh, we're having some issues with your submission. You've been flagged." And obviously this is all past post
9/11.
9/11. And I was like, okay. And they're like, yeah, your name matched with our database or something. And I was like, okay, that's,
Which is probably
whatever.
very statistically likely to happen to a lot of
Likely to
people.
happen, yeah.
Right. And they said your first and last name matched. Because typically, and I don't know if you guys remember this, but right after 9/11, any male Muslim between the
Yeah.
ages of like 14 and 25 or whatever was
Yeah.
SOL. And I was around that. I think I was like 26 when this happened. And I thought, a girl's name? Like you always heard this with the boys.
Yeah.
And so at the time my dad was posted in Pakistan and I go back home and I'm like, here's what happened. And my dad's like, okay, well, let me make some calls to find out what's going on. And that was the privilege I had that my dad knew, the US Embassy people, right? in many cases, this is where your life pretty much ends. Like you never go back. And so it turned out that like they had to clear me from the CIA, FBI, and INS, my names. And the
Wow.
US ambassador is like, I cannot do anything sitting here in Pakistan. It literally is going to all these agencies. And the only thing I can do is send an email or a letter, you know, saying, testifying that I know this person and she's legit, whatever. And I had just gotten engaged. So at one point I was like, Damon, you might have to come here and marry me
Wow.
to take me back because, yeah, I was stuck. So I was stuck there for 4 weeks. And the crazy part was I had that visa because I had a job in the US. And I was in this situation where I would basically lose my job because I couldn't go back to my
Go
job.
back
Damn.
to
You know, I was so lucky that my manager was supportive because it literally took
real.
4 weeks for me to get cleared and then, you know, be able to come back. So
And then
yeah,
you
so the
changed.
minute I got married, like the next day I'm in line getting my name changed. But funny enough, now I feel like I'm probably still on the list because it sounds like I have like a Muslim Jewish name. It's so interesting how just the name,
The
like our
name.
names, can define so many things for us and our identity and like then it's so much pressure in terms of how what you name your kids.
I was just gonna say,
absolutely.
so when we
Because like
were,
what went through you guys, you know, your heads when you guys were thinking about names?
it was exactly to so Minal or anyone doesn't have to go through what I went through. Because in
Yep.
Same.
school, Hussein, so I went to school, I was
Oh
in fifth
man.
grade. Fifth
Woo.
grade when the first Gulf War broke out with
Yep.
Saddam Hussein. People used to, there used to be, we used to have phone books back in the day. And you had to actually pay to keep your name out of the phone book.
No
So
way.
my parents eventually had to pay to keep our names off the phone book because people would just call us and be like, get the hell out of the country or whatever, like
Yep.
just call and yell at you and threaten you. And then at school, it was a mess because little kids would make fun of you or be, is your Uncle Saddam? Because it's on the news all the
Yeah.
time. So that's why I think I also resorted to claiming I was Christian and like all the things that was exactly opposite of my actual identity. And then when we had Manal, we were having Manal, it was like I would like, because by then, you know, I was 30 when I had her. So I was already going through like the whole own your identity and start to be proud of who you are. So I went through the whole thing. And now I'm like, well, I can't give her like a white name because that's not who we are.
Yeah.
But I can't give her a name that nobody can say. And of course, my parents were like, my dad especially is the Bangla in him was just like, give her a very Bengali name.
Yeah.
Nope, not happening. Just name your
No.
kids whatever the hell you want to name
I
them.
have the same. So Isla is spelled Aila. Because we thought if you spelled it Ayla, people would say it's Ayla.
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 And it's all the time she's still called Ayla. And you know, I think it's interesting that our kids are braver than we are because she will correct them and say it's Isla. And even at my age, I still sometimes don't correct my
Same.
daughter's name. Like, forget me. I like I still don't correct people. And I know there was like this big thing about that, right? The last
Yeah.
few years of, you know, you should say my name correctly. But I'm just like, I don't know if it's worth it for me to. I feel like I'm embarrassing the person. And I don't know if
Right.
that's like
I
the
Really?
think it's
brownness,
generational.
the immigrant in us that are just like so grateful that we get to live in this country that we don't want to impose anymore. And I
Mhm.
feel like I'm embarrassing them. What about you, Maya? Like with your kid, I mean, because your kids have different names that are unique. They're not necessarily super Bangladeshi or Arabic.
No. Well, they both have middle names that are Arabic.
Oh,
Yeah. So Azalea's name is obviously Azalea the flower. That
yeah.
is, we named her.
Common.
Yeah, it's pretty
But
common.
people know the
Her
name
middle,
or the
yeah,
word.
but still, people still mess it up because there's a lot of people that don't know about the flower
The
azalea, which
flower.
is, yeah. but people mess it up in Bangladesh now. So
Ajalia.
now we
Ajalia.
have,
Ajalia.
we have Ajalia, and her middle name is Amana. So Amana,
Oh,
Yeah.
but the same way like yours, Amana is spelled differently. It's Amanah.
So that
So it's
people
like,
here know how to
that's how it
say it.
should be.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, but it's like her name is already so long. It's like Azalea, Amana,
Al
Al-Muqtadir.
Muqtadir.
It's like so long that
Mm.
I mean, yeah.
That's okay. And then you have
Yeah.
Zen.
Now we have Zen, which
See?
is also it's like in like even my dad has a hard time saying his name. So
Jen.
he calls him Jen. And like I'm so done with correcting him. And his middle name is Izhan, but people
Ijan.
I
still have
love
a hard
that.
time saying Izhan because they're like Ijan or Ijahan, or it's yeah.
You
So I
should have
have the
And
spelled it
it's
with
opposite
the
problem.
J. You should have spelled it with the J
so
so
then
then
they would
everybody
flip it
says
to Z,
Z.
right?
Z,
It's
yeah.
kind of, and it is interesting because in Bangladesh, predominantly a lot of people name their kids Arabic names, and half of those letters we can't pronounce in Bangladesh. Like my
They
son's name
don't
is
exist.
Zain, and it's like Jen as
Jane.
well. Hello
We
Jen.
get Zane too. Yeah, we
Yeah,
get
how are you,
Zane.
Jen? Beta Jen. And you're like, who? Who that? Jen. Hello, Jen. And I'm like, again, you put so much thought into the name. Yeah, I forgot. I failed to think about the Bangladeshis who cannot pronounce the
Yeah.
letter Z. And so, yeah, now it's like Jen.
I never thought of it being like Zen as in calm. I always thought of
Yeah.
Zen as in the moment because I was going through so much stuff
Mm.
health-wise.
Oh.
And he kind of, or like at least that name, and like I thought that he always brought me to my present, right? But that name got so much like
Shit.
hate, so much shit, so
Yeah.
much shit. One, because it's like considered a Buddhist name, and like
Oh.
it's just like to I mean, and I think a lot of people wouldn't say it out loud, but a lot of people are like, দেখবা ও একদমই zen হবে না, he'll be so
Of
চঞ্চল, which
course.
is
Leave it to
what
everybody to trash every idea or anything we ever come up with.
It's in our blood.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Nobody liked the name when we first and I guess it's my fault too. Like I was like brainstorming it with family and all of that. They were like, no, no, don't name him that. Don't name him that. But then I was like, no, no,
That's why
that's
you can
what's
never
sticking.
share the names you're thinking
Yeah.
of. If you start thinking about different dialects too, like Sylheti, I do not understand a
Foreign.
word.
I can understand Silati just because I'm married
Well, you
into
have
one.
in-laws that
Already.
are,
But I remember when I first married into the family, like my khala shashuri would talk to like other cousins and stuff in like full Silati, and they would like
yeah.
she would intentionally do it to
I
like
was gonna say,
just
yeah.
make me really intimidated, but I would be like chuckling in the corner because like after about 5 minutes you can kind of pick up what
You
they're
can
talking
tell.
about. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but there's like this running joke in the family, like this one little girl, her name is Fadia. And so one of the mamas who's Siliti, and they're like they're excited, oh okay, আসতেছে, ও Fadia আসবে, Fadia আসবে. And all he heard was Fadia, and he was like, hey Fadia ailo.
My God.
But again, nobody intended for her name to be that, or
Yep.
for anyone in Siliti to say her name that way, or to misrepresent